Welcome to the Lakers Central podcast. The Lakers just defeated the Jazz, so we wanted to jump on and celebrate that win. Today's show is sponsored by Stitcher. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, check out the Stitcher podcast app. You can get Stitcher Premium free for 30 days. Use promo code Crossover. Shout out to Stitcher. They do a great job in partnering with networks like mine and my podcast. So again, check out Stitcher Premium, check out the Stitcher app, use promo code Crossover, and you get Stitcher Premium free for 30 days. Vinay, what's going on, man? You're back in California.
I am back in California. As you guys can see, the lighting is much better in the room in my house. I don't look like I'm in the room of a teenager, and the Lakers just completed a season sweep of a team that the ESPN nerds and analysts were telling us that they may not finish above this season. And they officially clinched the first seed. Even though we know that there is no home court advantage in the bubble, and that's been a pretty known thought. Everybody's known that from the very beginning. This does mean something. Getting the first seed is congratulatory to the Laker players for the hard work that they did, that they've done this season. They've won 51 games before they've even lost 20 games. So they're 51-15 right now. And one thing that I know that we've mentioned before that I want to constantly bring up is that Phil Jackson, the greatest coach of all time in basketball, has historically said that the mark of a true championship contender is a team that wins 40 games before they win 20. Before they lose 20. And the Lakers have won 50 games before they've lost 20. That is, I know the Lakers have their warts when it comes to perimeter defense, but that is incredible. And I think Laker fans that are tuning in right now or that end up hearing this later, it's time to celebrate. The job's not finished, as Kobe said before, but it's okay to take a moment and enjoy this because that's really what this is. The Lakers have done a tremendous job, and we've had a really long season on and off the court. A lot of things have happened with this franchise, but this is something to celebrate. And it's crazy to think that the Lakers would be a team that's considered the underdog, but we legitimately have been the underdog all season. So I don't know if you'll have to bleep this out, Alex, later for the sponsors, but fuck all the hipster picks that everybody had, the Jazz, the Rockets, the Clippers. I understand why they were pick favorites, but, the Nuggets, all these folks that were using an injured LeBron season to say that he was cooked and he'd never recover, and all the folks that wanted to diminish the good play that Anthony Davis had over in New Orleans. And yes, also the Pelicans fans and the folks who were propping up the Pelicans saying that they would finish with a better record than the Lakers. Laker fans have seen it all, and I'm sure all the Laker fans are going to be holding their receipts until they actually win the championship before they let it loose for the whole offseason. But this is a time to celebrate, and I'm happy today. It's a wonderful Tuesday. It's Wednesday for you since you're already past midnight, but it's a wonderful evening, I think, for both of us as Laker fans. It's been a long season, and I'm just glad that they clinched tonight. Now, if they, now I don't care, if they're just working on lineups and stuff like that. But that first half of the game today, I was just like, all right, are we trying to win this game, or are we just like messing around again? So I'm glad that they got it together and got serious about it.
I am too, man. I mean, look, clinching the 1 seed in the West is no small feat. I mean, the West has been the dominant conference basically since Jordan retired the second time. I mean, the West has been it. And this Lakers team has not been good. I mean, roughly 6 years, but like championship good in a decade.
Yeah.
So to finally be considered one of the best teams in the NBA, record wise, any other way you want to look at it. I'm happy that they did it. The circumstances of the season is crazy, but 50 wins. They beat a good Jazz team. I know they're missing a couple pieces, but the Jazz is still a well-coached, well-ran team, as we saw in this game. They competed, and so the Lakers got this. They got the West won, man, and at this point, nothing else matters for the rest of these bubble games, if you will. I don't know how much more we're going to see of LeBron and Anthony Davis. I think we'll see some more of them because you do want to get some more continuity with this team.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Danny Green's not shooting good at all.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get these guys in rhythm, but at least, you don't want to have any of these guys get injured or anything like that. So you want to be careful, but it is a time to celebrate. The job is not finished. Kobe never celebrated too soon.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any easier once we get into the playoffs. So, but tonight we can celebrate. Anthony Davis had a monster game, 42 points.
Yeah, he clinched the game with that step back three on all the analysts' favorite defensive second most defensive player of the year pick. That's the guy.
What I was going to say. Yep.
Gobert's the one who's been rumored. A lot of analysts have put him. Zach Lowe did it. I think a couple other guys have already. I think Brian Windhorst said he slotted him as second. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But there's been a couple of the smart analytics guys that have said that, or smart analyst guys that have put Gobert there. And I understand that he's the plus minus and all that data that's behind him and stuff like that. But one of the things that I like to say is when you're trying to measure up somebody's defense, you have to watch the game. You can't. Data does not tell you what it is that it sees, what's actually happening on the court. And Davis was playing like he wanted to send a message, to the Jazz, and he's typically done really, really well. And today's game, I would say, there was a very stark contrast in how well Davis played at the 5 versus the 4. And I want to say, I know in the first three quarters, it was about evenly split how much he played the 4 and how much he played the 5. But when he was at the 5, he was all over the place. He was grabbing offensive rebounds, tip-ins, hitting wide open, hitting threes, kicking out to his guys.
Yep.
He was fantastic today. And the Lakers clinching the game, or clinching the first seed behind a 40-point effort by Anthony Davis that's been the theme of the season. A lot of these guys have been treated like they're castaways, and to some degree they have been. The Avery Bradleys, the Danny Greens, the KCPs, the Dwight Howards, JaVale McGee's. All these guys have been treated like castaways, and it's just crazy that even now they've won 51 games, and you're still going to get people who are going to say that. And it's just like, whoa, what more do you possibly want to for us to say as it relates to this sort of thing? So yeah, here we go. As I'm talking to you, if people are watching the live stream, you see me looking off to the side because I could see Laker fans posting screenshots of all the ESPN things. And Raj at Unwritten Rules on Twitter, he just posted, it was Denver, Clippers, Rockets, and Utah. They had the Lakers as the 5th seed on this ESPN ranking. So it's like we understand, Laker fans I think have gotten a pretty good idea that it's really fun to crap on LeBron James, and it's really fun to crap on the Lakers because it gets a rise out of Laker fans. But hey, man, we'll just wait. We'll just keep quiet and we'll wait. And we know what's going to happen. We've heard what the analysts have said. Frank Vogel's not going to get Coach of the Year. Rob Pelinka's not going to get Executive of the Year. AD's not going to win. AD's not even ranked second on some votes for Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron's probably going to come second for MVP. And you're just setting the table for the Lakers to come through and win a championship and just knock down all of those things that you guys said that they weren't. So, this is what happens when you rely on companies like ESPN to tell you which teams are good and which ones aren't. But, Laker fans should enjoy this. And I think moving forward, Laker fans should expect that Vogel's probably going to do some more lineup testing and stuff like that. It seemed like today he was doing a lot of 3-guard lineup testing, and that's something that the Lakers haven't done too much this year. They haven't run too many Caruso, KCP, Danny Green, and then LeBron and AD lineups. Only against very specific teams like Oklahoma City. But when I was watching them today, the Jazz bench unit, they do try to run a 3-guard lineup. It's usually like Conley, Clarkson, and Mitchell or something like that. You get 3 guys. OKC loves to run that. They run Schroeder, Shai Gilgeous, and Chris Paul, obviously.
Yep.
Hall of Famer Chris Paul. So I think the Lakers are. So when I was watching today, I was just like, why is J.R. Smith playing so many minutes? Like, why are some of these guys playing so many minutes? And then I just kind of sat back and realized, I was like, oh, if you're going to eventually play Anthony Davis at the 5, you got to give these guys reps. Like, these guys have to play because you're not going to be able to just substitute another forward in for Anthony. Like you can't put Dudley in for Anthony Davis and expect it. And chances are, based on what we've seen, if you've been watching any of the games, other games, Houston likes to run 3-guard lineups. OKC does. Jazz do it with the bench. Denver hasn't really done it yet, but they're capable of running 3-guard lineups if they want to. The Clippers like to run 3-guard lineups. They'll run like 3 smaller guys. I think against the Lakers matchup in the first round or first game, I want to say they ran Pat Beverly, Shamet, and Paul George lineup, which was Paul George is not really a guard, but he can play both. So I think the Lakers are trying to test out playing more 3-guard lineups, which is why we're seeing these weird. All of a sudden, we're seeing like these weird lineup combinations and stuff like that. But from my observation, it looks like Vogel is starting to use Anthony Davis more at the 5 to get his reps up at that position. I'm hoping, keep my fingers crossed, he continues to do that, because it looks like JaVale's effectiveness is almost like this is the most like obvious. It's been like JaVale's just kind of taking up space. He's not really doing too much for us. So I know Laker fans are a little very paranoid right now that Vogel's going to keep trying to force that issue. But one thing that we've always talked about is Vogel's a diplomatic guy. He's not going to just like yank you and just be like, all right, I'm not going to give you a reason for pulling you. Or he's not going to pull a guy and be like, well, you've been sucking, so we're just not going to play you. I think it's going to be a gradual thing. And so I'm still keeping my eye on it, but the Lakers have 5 more games before they actually work into the seeding and stuff like that. So we'll see. Yeah,
I mean, JaVale wasn't good tonight, and I understand why Vogel went. He went big tonight because they're going against Gobert, and you don't want to have AD bang too much against him. But AD consistently got up and down the floor and beat everybody else. Didn't matter if it was a forward guarding him or if it was Gobert, and so Vogel's going to play this right. All the smart Laker fans know Anthony Davis is going to play more 5 when they get into the playoffs. Like we know that. That's what's going to happen. But if you're Vogel, there's no way in the world you want JaVale sulking on the bench, right? I mean, so you need to gradually kind of wean him out a little bit. You just can't be he's out of there. But one thing that did jump out to me is I'm noticing how much more Dion, obviously, but not only Dion, but like Dion, Caruso, and JR playing over Quinn Cook. And when you look at how Dion and JR just got there, and Quinn isn't really playing at all. He only played 2 minutes tonight, but he didn't play much in other games either. So
when I saw him come out, I was just like, why is Quinn Cook in this game?
He's not playing at all. I mean, look, he's an undersized guard anyway, so that poses its own problems. But Dion's been extremely effective. He's a plus 11 tonight. And I think I tweeted this. There was one play in the fourth quarter. He crossed his man over, drove to the basket, and then kicked out the AD for the 3, and AD made the 3. But Dion, he's a threat to pull up. He's a threat to go to the basket. And let's say that was Rondo. There's no way in the world the defense bites on him driving to the basket. Rondo might not have driven anyway. But then earlier in the game, Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy were talking about losing Rondo. And Breen had the nerve to talk about Rondo's past playoff performances as if that's an indicator on how good he would be this year. And I'm just like, you guys, you're not paying attention at all to the Lakers. At all. And there are people that listen to them. There are people that really think that we're losing something by Rondo not being there. But Dion's been great. I am all for Dion Waiters right now. And I want to see JR get a few more minutes. He got 14 tonight, which I think is sufficient. I want to make sure he's in good rhythm because Danny Green and KCP shot okay tonight. I mean, overall they did. I mean, but from 3, I don't know what's going on with Danny Green. I mean, he has his ebbs and flows. He's always been like that throughout his career. But he's in one of those lulls right now. So if he's not hitting his threes, you're going to need these other guys to step up. But I'm glad the Lakers got this win. And people were DMing me asking me what's up with Markieff not playing. Was he injured? And I don't think he's injured at all. He just didn't play tonight for whatever reason.
I thought today would have been a perfect game for him to play because they run Tony Bradley and they run George. I can't pronounce the name correctly. George Niang or something like that. Niang. And I was just like, oh yeah, they could play Markieff. Like these guys aren't like world beaters when it comes to their positional. So I was just like, maybe they'll play him this game. But I wonder if the Lakers are trying to prioritize getting their guards into the rotation a little bit more, specifically Dion and JR, because they're expecting to have to run 3-guard lineups. Because Markieff, you wouldn't play Markieff in the 3-guard lineups. And even if you do play Markieff in the 3-guard lineups, he's just going to be standing in the corner, basically shooting threes while the other 3 guards are running around. And Anthony Davis, like kind of mans the middle and stuff like that. So just to echo your point, like Dion continues to be fantastic. Like he continues these 3 games. The Lakers bench has been excellent. Like I don't have every single time they come in for that first shift, they are changing the speed of the game, the effectiveness of the offense. And, like one of my favorite parts about Dion is right when a team scores like a tough bucket or like it feels like the opposing team's getting momentum. Like today may have been the first day I saw it compared to the previous 2 because Dion was just trying to figure out his role. But today was the first time where he just kind of like took it. Like he just took it up the court like he would normally you expect him to. And he took it right to the rack. Like he didn't wait for his teammates to show up. He realized that the Jazz, whoever was in front of him had no backside help. And he had a couple layups, he had a couple layups. 2 I remember distinctly where he did I tweeted about it. He did the like between the legs, right to left, just to kind of get the guy asleep. And then I think it was Conley or somebody just kind of sat, or Royce O'Neal, he just sat on his left hand. And then Dion just froze him and did a left to right cross. Everybody's telling me it's the Timmy Hardaway cross, but he crossed him and he finishes with a layup. That was on the heels of a score. So like whatever momentum you built, he just like, it's just gone because he already scored. And then there was another one where he caught it in the corner and then Conley sealed him off and he basically only had the baseline. And like Conley was like, okay, try and take a baseline on me. And I don't know if maybe Conley forgot the scouting report, but Dion loves to go left-handed. So he just goes left-handed on the baseline and scores like a contested layup. And again, that like whatever momentum the Jazz built, it automatically got like quelled down. It's like it's the silencing 3 that we've seen Kobe do, where some guy hits a big shot, Kobe comes down, hits another big shot, takes the crowd right out of the game. There's no crowd here, but you know what I mean. Like that kind of stuff, that kind of improvisational, unorthodox thinking is something that the Lakers have not had all season. If LeBron or Anthony Davis have it, they're going to shoot it or they're going to try and score immediately. But having Dion be in that role instead of Rondo, who would probably like wait for his teammates to catch up and set an offense, let the defense get set. It's a completely different facet. And there was a couple plays. Caruso seals off his guy. I think Dion came from behind and stole it from Mitchell, and then they run a 2-on-1. Like that, I'm telling you, I've been on this. I mean, we've both been on this, but that Caruso Waiters, that pairing is going to be good because they are both tough guys. They're not going to give ground to the guys that they're defending. Dion may fall asleep when it comes to some of his rotations. That's always been a problem for him, but like hopefully he gets that figured out. But they're aggressive guys. They don't play scared. They don't play like safe. Like they'll continue to attack the offensive ball handler. And we saw that a couple of times. I feel like there's a couple of times where they both just got into it and just kind of broke up passes and stole it and stuff like that. So I'm just glad that we're seeing better consistency out of the bench unit. And I was telling you right before we started, LeBron did that thing that he did with the Cavs game where he spent like 3.5 quarters just kind of like chilling out, setting up his teammates. And in the regular season during that time, I think even I was like, all right, is LeBron screwing around? Like, does he even care about this game? And then like literally that 6 or 7 minute segment, he's like, all right, let's go ahead and put this team away. And that was like the last shift that he and Dwight, I think he was playing the 4 and Dwight was playing the 5. And they just pushed the lead out to double digits. So, I guess sometimes we forget it's LeBron James, like, we watch him. He almost fools us into watching him for 3 quarters. And some of his athleticism has waned a little bit because of his age and because of the injury. But like when he wants to turn on, he can turn on. The Lakers had 100 points. There's like 8 minutes or some 6-7 minutes or something like that left in the game. And I was just like, they couldn't make anything in the first half, and they're still somehow putting up 100. So it's fantastic. It was a fantastic. I'm glad that they turned it around in the second half, especially defensively. But I think there are, for as much as people may think that like, oh, now the rest of the games they won't care. I think there's small things that they're going to make. Vogel's already made changes in regards to how his lineup shifts work and how many minutes he's playing. Anthony Davis played the whole first quarter. He almost never does that. So that's new. So there are small things that I'm sure me and you will be highlighting as we go on. But all in all, man, this is It's a great day. Lakers clinched. It's been a very long time. I think since last time we clinched was 2000. First seed was 2010. I want to say
we got it. The first year Powell got there, which was what 08. He got there. We
the
had
2 years that we won the
year.
the 2 years that we won the championship were the last 2 times we clinched the first seed in the West.
Yep,
if I remember correctly. And then the year that we got bounced early, I think the Spurs clinched the first seed that year. So, I mean, historical precedence basically says that the last 2 times the Lakers have clinched the first seed, they've won the championship. So there is some history on our side, but we know injuries and all kinds of stuff can possibly happen in the landscape of the playoffs. But it's been a long 6-7 years.
Heck yeah. Man. It's been a long ride, man. It's funny because, like, as Laker fans, 6 or 7 years, it seems like a long time for us because it is for a championship drought for Laker fans. But like in the grand scheme of things, teams go 30 and 40 years without even sniffing a championship, and so it almost feels like we're elitist in some ways, right? Which I guess we are as Laker fans. But these last 6 years, they were brutal. I mean, it wasn't just that we were bad and struggling to make the playoffs or anything. I mean, we were historically bad.
Yeah.
And so you had that. You had draft picks that they're turning out fine now, but when we had them, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen with some. We wanted these guys to be great, but they weren't world beaters as soon as they came in the league. And then, everything with Kobe, right? He tears his Achilles, all that stuff. Dwight Howard, he leaves too. I mean, and then now, you lose Kobe. It's been a wild 6 or 7 years. And so for them to have the 1 seed in the West, they're legit. I mean, hey, we lost to the Raptors the other night. It's going to happen. The Lakers, the good guards are always going to be a problem for the Lakers. You saw it tonight. Conley and Mitchell had really good games.
Yeah.
That's just going to be an issue. And so LeBron and Anthony Davis have to overcome that. And they should be able to. And other guys, they have to step up. Kuz had a big 3-pointer down the stretch, I think a couple minutes to go. He had a big 3. It seemed tonight like he played within himself. He wasn't forcing anything, which is it's good. They didn't need 20 points out of him to win. You know what I'm saying? Like they got 11 out of Howard, 9 out of Kuz. Dion gave him 7. Like they got just enough.
Yeah.
And LeBron wasn't even superhuman. He was just like,
I'm playing. I'm here. I'm here.
I mean, AD was superhuman, but like LeBron just was kind of like coasting.
Yeah.
This team is going to be okay. They're going to be it's going to be tough for any team to beat them 4 times in a 7-game series. That's not going to be easy.
Yeah. And then, I would say it's probably been quite a while since we've gotten like a LeBron signature performance. I mean, even up until tonight, for a while, it just kind of felt like AD was the only one doing anything. And I mean, I didn't even realize that he put up 40 until everybody's like, "Oh, AD's about to have 40." I was like, "What?" I thought he was like at 20, 28 or something like that, like some nominal number. But it's just sometimes like we've been so used to seeing this and cheering for this, at least this season so far, that we sometimes forget like how good these guys really are. And obviously, there's no fans, so it's hard for us to like really absorb like the energy behind them playing successfully. But if you think about it, like we really haven't gotten like a LeBron signature game in a while now. Like
it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. And so I mean, obviously the most recent one, or the not recent, but the last one would have been the Clippers game where they had Lou Williams in them. That was like the LeBron signature game. And but there are trends that were issues 4 months ago that are now turning. Okay. And that's the part that I'm really happy to see. That's the way I'm kind of compartmentalizing this team. Is the shooting a problem? Yes, it is, because it was also a problem during the 4 months, except for a couple guys like KCP who were shooting well. But there are certain compartments of this Lakers team that have gotten better. The 2 bigs lineup, that was really good. It's still good with Dwight when it's Dwight and AD. Right. Depend on most nights. But with JaVale and AD, hasn't been that good in the bubble. The bench was an issue. We would regularly lose leads with the bench. Like it was almost expected. Like Laker fans would just get the memes ready as soon as LeBron went out. That narrative has completely flipped in the bubble. The bench is, I would argue, is playing better than the starters is in terms of pace, in terms of energy, in terms of defense. Granted, it's LeBron and he's the engine, and I think he's kind of making sure he manages his health. He doesn't want to overexert himself going into the playoffs. The bench has improved. Kuzma has improved, and I think those 4 months it's flipped. He's been more consistent, I would say, not in terms of just scoring, but in terms of just overall as a player. I'm not afraid when he has the ball in his hand because I think he's going to turn it over or make a bad pass. I'm more like, all right, if he shoots it, it looks like he's going to take an in-rhythm shot. Or if he's playing defense, I don't feel like it's barbecue chicken basically and stuff like that. Caruso, I was really, really worried about him even just bringing the ball up the court. But he's been relatively good. They've mixed in Dion, and he's been pretty good too as well. And so, all of these different things, like these small things that they needed to work on to improve on, it looks like those things are happening. All we haven't seen is all of it come together in one shot. And I'm not sure if we'll see that until the playoffs actually come. And we may actually see it a couple days before, a couple games before the playoffs actually start, where, they want to be crispy and sharp with their defensive rotations and stuff like that. But again, every single team every single championship contender, we just saw the Bucks lose to the Rockets in a shootout, right? The Clippers lost their fourth and final matchup with the Lakers, right? Playing basically their best defensive players. Every single one of these teams, including the Lakers, has their flaws. And there is no team in the NBA that comes in to the playoffs or can say this season that we have no flaws whatsoever. But what gives the Lakers an advantage is, A, we have arguably the greatest player of all time leading us, who is more cerebral than probably any player I've seen, I would say, since Kobe Bryant. And we have a coach who's willing to make adjustments, who's willing to say, holy crap, we just gave up 8 points in the first 3 minutes. I need to get whatever the issue is out of here and adjust my lineups. So, and we have a young superstar in Anthony Davis. So we just got to be patient. But we don't have to be patient about celebrating because we did clinch the first seed. And I'm sure our fans who want to diminish it or downplay it are going to be like, well, you don't get any home court advantage. We don't care because last year we were happy just to be in the playoffs. And 1 year later, or like 6 months after that, we're clinching a 1 seed. So, that's a pretty huge jump from going basically to bottom of the lot or, top 4 pick or whatever to number 1 seed in the Western Conference, mind you, not the Eastern Conference. So it's been a long time. And I know, like me, after that Achilles tear, we knew writing was on the wall for Kobe at the time. And the Lakers gave him that contract. I'm only bringing this up because this is like a very that was a very not difficult time for me, but it was a very I defended Kobe a lot during that time when they gave him that 2-year $50 million contract. People were like, why would you do that? Like, why would you give this guy this franchise to do that? Meant something, to Kobe. It meant something to fans to reward a guy who did what he did. Obviously, looking at it in hindsight with his tragedy, it means even more to us that we took care of him after he had basically given his legs to us, given his legs to the Laker franchise. But I always reflect on that moment because I always think to myself that if we never do that, I don't know if LeBron James ever comes to this team, and if LeBron James doesn't come to this team, I don't know if Anthony Davis comes to this team. And if he doesn't come to this team, I don't know if the Lakers get the 1 seed and they're in championship contention in 6 years, 7 years. How many teams are still doing rebuilds? The Knicks are still doing a rebuild. They're like on their 3rd rebuild. The Clippers did 3 rebrands before they got out a race. They had to out a racist owner before they could finally be considered championship contenders. And we as Laker fans, I think we are a little elitist. We are, because that's just the pedigree that Laker fans have. It's what they expect. And that's why I think these moments are the moments that we should celebrate as Laker fans because It's hard being a Laker fan, man. You can win 51 games, and people are going to say, well, we better watch out for the Blazers. The Blazers could bounce them in the first round. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, look, that's when I got to mute the television. You and I didn't know each other when I don't think we did when the Lakers gave him that extension, but I said the exact same thing that you said. They were taking care of their guy, and that was going to send a message to every single other player around the NBA. Not only that, he made more money for that team than they were allowed to pay him because of the cap. That's the reality. They're a $4 billion franchise largely because that man played for them for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So they took care of their guy, and I thought that sent a message. And so, no, you're absolutely right, man. There's a lot to celebrate right now. We won't get too high because Kobe wouldn't want that. But certainly I think Lakers fans can take the night and kind of let out a sigh of relief. We got the 1 seed. And I know Anthony Davis the other night, he only took 7 shots. It kind of looked like he was out of it. But I'm looking at his free throw numbers for the last 3 games. He was 16 of 17 against the Clippers. He was 9 of 9 against Toronto, and then 12 of 15 against Utah. He's been aggressive from the free throw line. This guy's he's done his thing, and I think that he knows what's at stake. He knows how he left New Orleans, even though I think he left New Orleans just fine. I think you do what you want, but I know he's conscious of how people view him leaving New Orleans. They want to win a title, and so they'll celebrate tonight. I was just looking up at ESPN that LeBron was just doing some of his post-game stuff, but celebrate tonight. I think we have OKC on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think it's on Wednesday. Yeah, they're Wednesday. Lineup, so I wonder if the Lakers are trying to warm up to having to play that 3-guard lineup against OKC.
So I'm sure the timeline is on fire right now. I would imagine. So,
yeah. I mean, some folks are tweeting it out. So I feel like, Laker fans are just holding on to these receipts for that championship, and once that championship, they're going to spend it won't be summertime by then. It'll be like, there'll still be some summertime left. They'll spend all of the off season, limited off season that we have, sharing those receipts to everybody. But I mean, one of the things I've talked to you about before is like just dunking on people on Twitter. It's just like it's not even fun anymore. Like it's not fun making fun of Nick Friedel and Jackie McMullen and all these other guys. Because come on, man. Like you guys, I can't imagine that you guys actually believe some of the stuff you say, but maybe you do. Maybe it sells ratings and stuff like that. But because of everything that's happened this season, I just want to kind of sit back and just sigh of relief. We made it. We're here. Like I said, job's not finished. But this is something that this is something the players can reward themselves with, at least mentally, and say, hey, the amount of effort that I put in to this and the amount of nonsense that people are saying about us, this is at least something that we can hang on our hat. And there's still 5 more games left for the Lakers before the regular season's over, and the playoff pretty much immediately start after that. But hey, man, I won't be surprised if we have a letdown OKC game. If they're just now kind of working lineups, they're not trying too hard to collide with guys full speed. And Anthony Davis, I felt hit the ground so many times today. I'm like, all right, we don't need to do we don't need to win the game that bad where you're gonna end up getting hurt. You know what I mean? So that, and if you've been watching the 3 games, LeBron's getting fouled, and they're not calling anything. And so for me, it's just all right, this is how they're gonna call it and stuff like that. Then just stay healthy as you get into the playoffs, and then we can work on it from there. So I'm just happy, man. We clinched the 1st seed, and I'm sure Lakers Twitter will spend the rest of this week and onwards letting all these folks know. People are already tagging a couple of those writers in some of my tweets, just kind of killing them. So enjoy, man. Laker fans have earned it. They've been defending faithfully, defending this team all season when people are using obtuse metrics and stats to make everybody look worse or mislead people and stuff like that. So it's wonderful, man. It's been a great season, and it's been a very long season, but we're not done yet. Now it's getting into the playoffs healthy and bringing it all together for a championship run.
Looks like that's what we're going to do, man. So we'll close out on that. Vinay, tell everybody where they can find you, man.
You can find me on Twitter at vkillum. That's basically where I'm at. I've got a newsletter. You can subscribe to it in the bio. It's mainly Lakers content, but I write about all kinds of different stuff. I'm trying to absorb as many NBA games as I can, and once we finally figure out who that 8 seed is going to be, we'll do some deep dives into how the Lakers can kind of counter whatever the opposing team likes to do, and where they're more effective compared to everybody else. So I'm looking forward to more in-depth Laker content once we get closer to those playoffs. But you can find me on Twitter.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter also at Lakers Central CEO. You can follow the podcast at Lakers Central 365, and you can follow the network at Crossover 365 on Twitter and Instagram. You've been listening to Lakers Central.